Hello, friends. Welcome to Akul Mac Live. And today we have a very important, very distinguished personality joining us. He is very well known. In fact, his company is a brand name by itself in India. Mr. Naveen Toshniwal, the CEO of Toshniwal Cable. So, without further ado, let's welcome Naveen from Jaipur.
Hello, Chandrakant. Hope all is well.
Everything is well, Naveenji. Welcome to the show. And, we are always find it very pleasurable to talk to you because we learn so many things from you. And today we want to know about the core business of your company, which is the Toshniwal Cables. So when you say Toshniwal Cables, I think there are a lot of other cable companies which people are aware of. What is so special in Toshniwal Cables and how your company is differentiated from others?
See, first, let me tell you, Toshniwal is a old name in instrumentation business. It was actually started by my grandfather's generation in 1940s, even prior to independence. So we have always been specialists in instrumentation products, and we are known in industry for this for many decades now. So Toshniwal Cables was actually started by my father, and we specialize in manufacturing of industrial and instrumentation cables. These are different from the regular cables which we are using in electricity or which we are using in our houses as house wiring cable. We call it lighting cables or house wiring cables. What we make is actually meant for specifically industrial purposes, and they are all customized and made as per clients' requirements.
So these things are different. These are not the cables that we are used to. These are the specialized cables. So who are the people in India and outside India who may be using or have a use for this kind of different instruments that your company produce?
When we talk of cables, the first thing which comes to mind is that it is an electrical product, and it will be used by electrical uh, departments of the industries. But actually, what we make is instrumentation specialized cables, and the application is used in instrumentation departments. These cables are used to connect measuring instruments or process control instruments to the processes in the plant. So these are all customized and made to order, and any industry where instrumentation is involved, they will be purchasing or buying these cables for use in their industrial purposes.
Well, Naveenji, in fact, when you say that the instrumentation, the people who may be watching our program may not understand what is the instrumentation. So, can you very briefly explain how the cable meant for instruments may be different from the wiring which we have in our homes? And what are these instrumentation? Can you explain a little bit?
See, if you go to any modern industry, if you go to any floor shop of any big factory, like if you go to oil refineries or steel plants or fertilizer plants or any other heavy engineering industry, you will see that there are very few people actually on the shop floor, because most of the processes are all controlled by instruments. For example, you have a furnace and you require to measure the temperature, then you will be having thermocouples, which are actually temperature measuring instruments, which are installed on the furnace. But then you cannot climb on the furnace and take the temperature. You have to have the measuring facility at the top, at a distance from where you can actually monitor or see the temperature which is there in the furnace. For that, you need to extend the measuring point from actually the site. So these cables, which you use to connect thermocouples to the you can say the control room, where actually the person is sitting and monitoring the temperature of the furnace. This extension cable is actually called thermocouple extension or compensating cable. So this is specifically one of the products which we are manufacturing. Similarly, you have RTD cables where you are connecting RTD. RTD is resistant temperature detector to the measuring point or the control room. There you have to use RTD cables. This is also one of the instrumentation cables which we manufacture. So likewise, we have multi-core cables, or you have then again see the cables can be made very specifically to the requirements. For example, they might be having electrostatic shielding, which means that any power lines which are going nearby these instrumentation cables, they will tend to have an electrical interference on these cables because of the high voltage these power cables carry. So you have to actually provide a shielding or a screening from these electrostatic interferences. So this is why we have to provide a metallic shielding on these cables. This is one of the special features in these instrumentation cables. Then the cables can also have armoring, where you are actually providing a mechanical strength to the cables. So again, these are all specific to the client requirements, where they are using the cable, in what conditions they are using the cable. So this is how instrumentation cables are manufactured very specifically against specific requirements of the client.
I've also heard about the shielded cables mostly being used in the aircraft because aircraft use the transmitter to transmit or to stay connected with the tower below, and the wiring in the aircraft is shielded. So I've heard about these things. So tell me, Naveen ji, when you talk about these special cables, are they produced by using the same material that we have in our home wiring, or these are all specialized different materials for shielding, for cable, for electricity transmission? So are they the materials are different or is the same? That's my core question.
See, the house wiring cables generally they will be having aluminum or copper conductors, and they are used for carrying power or high voltage currents, which is used to run your fans, lights, and our air conditioners and whatever gadgets in our house. Instrumentation cables are specifically for carrying only signals for measuring temperature or measuring pressure or controlling temperature or controlling pressure or any such very minute activities in the plant. So here we have to mostly use copper, and in special cases like thermocouple cables where you are measuring the temperature, there you have to use alloys in the cables. The positive leg will have one alloy, the negative will have another alloy. It can be a combination of copper nickel, or it can be a combination of nickel chromium or nickel aluminum, again depending very specifically on what the client requires.
So you're talking about that the client has specification and the specifications keep changing. So when the client comes to your organization for a particular type of cable, you will have to understand these specifications, and after understanding these specifications, you have to do some sort of a research. So is R&D a major part of your business?
Yes, that is a very pertinent question. R&D definitely is a very major component of our industry because we have to sometimes even develop cables for the specific needs of a client. In fact, we have developed a lot of import substitutes for our clients in India, like BHEL and NTPC. They are all major buyers, where they have actually given us specifications of cables which they were earlier importing from European countries. Maybe we were not able to develop exactly what they required, but we developed and made trials for them to run at their plant and check whether this development made by us is actually suiting or running properly in their applications. So import substitute is something which we are trying to develop on a very big space, on a very big pace, and for that we have to do a lot of R&D, research, trials. So that's how we are trying to develop and make lot of import substitutes. Especially, we are also being encouraged by industries because of this Make in India program. So a lot of motivation is coming from the end users also to develop special cables which we can make in India.
So when you talk about these thermocouples and different kind of things, your company also produce these end sensors, or your company only produces the connectors like cables, etc. Because I think as we progress into this decade, the sensors would play a major role. In fact, if you hear Prime Minister's speech, he talks about remote sensing. He also talked about survey of farmers field, and also talks about how much water required where, etc. So a lot of these new things are coming, and for which we need sensors, and your company would then have to produce these connectors. So my question is, are you trying to, or you are also already producing these sensors which are a lot of R&D required to produce these sensors to tell you exactly what is going on? Is there some initiative from your company in this arena?
So in fact, sensors and sensing instruments are already being produced by some of our other family members. So in our group, there are a lot of factories in our Toshniwal group. There are a lot of factories who are producing different types of measuring instruments like thermocouples or RTDs, and even lab instruments which are used in universities and colleges. So that development has already been done. And if you go and see our group companies, if you type Toshniwal group, there are a lot of companies in our group who are already producing sensors and instruments.
Naveenji, I think I lost you for a moment, but I think I got your answer
Yeah,
that
that's
I got your answer that there are other sister companies who are producing these sensors. The reason why I asked this question is because
right.
if you look at the latest technology which is involving IoTs, so some of the IoT examples are you have a sensor in your watch which keep track of your vitals. There could be other IoT low cost components which may be required to by railways for shunting of wagons. How much quantity is required by other industries, heavy industries. So for that also the IoT can be used. IoT can also be used by a farmer where he can control amount of water to be given in a field, amount of urea to be given in one particular area, and other nutrients. All he can do by just controlling his this entire setup from his mobile. So I think the new wave of technology development is coming, and it is going beyond the personal use and actually going real applications, and especially uh, for the Indian who was largely ignored for last so many hundreds of years. So I think that is where my question was coming from, that Toshniwal as a group is not only providing the cables but also providing these end sensors. And in the end, I would like to ask you about very important point, which for which you may have an answer, may not have an answer, but let me ask you. See, there is elderly people who who needs a lot of attention, and for that, right now the technology is the wide. These sensors are very expensive. For example, if there are heart patients, they have to put the sensor right on top of heart, whereas a different kind of a very sensitive sensor can be put in your watch itself. So, is your group companies doing any R&D, or are you permitted to talk about it? If yes, why don't you give us a little bit idea about these specialized sensors which may be required to for elderly management and also kid management, and also measuring the soil quality. These are very sensitive sensors. Is there any R&D going on in your group companies?
Yeah, I think some of my family members, they are already doing it. And in fact, I can tell you more about our cables because that is where I'm directly involved. See, there are some hospitals who are having or developing these hearing aids. Like you put one hearing aid in the ear and you have a small wire which is connecting that hearing aid to some battery or something. So those very specialized and very thin cables, just it is 2 or 3 millimeters diameter cable. In that small cable, we have to pass 2 or 3 separate wires, and which are to be shielded also to take care of the electrostatic interferences which are coming from outside. So we have been asked to try and develop these specialized cables also. Like as of now, these hospitals and medical people are importing from Germany and USA. So this is again one of the very challenging and interesting tasks which we are trying to work on.
Well, Naveen I think we've got the gist of your business, which is on the cable instrumentation and the specialized cables that your company is producing. Uh, well, 15-20 minute time is not sufficient, but I think we had a good learning that such development is going on. A lot of companies like yourself and your other group companies are doing a lot of research and development in India to produce make in India products, specialized products. And I think there is a lot of new technologies coming up, being promoted by India, like electric cars. I think the future looks bright for your company as well as with your uh, group companies. So I wish you all the best. It was lovely talking to you today.
Thank you so much. My pleasure too.
So Naveenji, we will catch up next week. Until then, I like to say you have a good health and good foresight towards your business. Bye bye for today.